Namaste, everybody. Welcome to the Sundays with Sattva program. Today we have a really intriguing guest with us. We have with us Pravin Khatal. He is a computer engineer and has an MBA in marketing. He was born and brought up in Mumbai, but his roots go back to rural Maharashtra, a place called Sangamner. He was a bright student always. And his middle class upbringing, he says, has helped him, and through that upbringing he has come up in the technology industry. So he has had a phenomenal career. Okay? He has been extremely successful for the past 25 years, and he has worked with many big technology names such as TCS, Tech Mahindra, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte. Virtusa is the long list of his clients and people he has worked with. His work has taken him to 9 different countries. He has worked with multiple people, multiple cultures, diverse work ethics. His wife, who is also here, she has also joined us, Reshma. They have 2 teenagers, one 17-year-old girl, Zui, whom I have spoken to. She wants to become an environmental lawyer eventually, and 14-year-old teenage boy, Siddhant. So all of these, the reason I'm giving you this background is all of this is going to come in his talk. Okay, he's going to talk to us regarding his whole story about how he was diagnosed with cancer and how he got over it. He's an ardent sport and music fan. He loves jogging and swimming, so he is an exercise enthusiast, excels in cricket, tennis, basketball. So he has an overall well-rounded personality. Okay, he's currently learning to play the rumba style of guitar. How's that? So how many things can one do in one lifetime and still be so joyful? We are going to try to find from our brother, Pravin. He calls me Dada because of his affection and love towards me. I'm delighted that he has considered me as his brother. I also love having him as a brother. Pravin, Reshma, the stage is all yours. Go ahead, please. You have to unmute and then come online for everybody. See if you can turn your camera around so we can see you both very nicely.
Am I audible now, Dada?
You are audible. Perfect. If you can turn your device 90 degrees would be great, so we can see you in landscape rather than portrait. See if that can happen. Yes, perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's get started. Thank you, Dada, for that amazing introduction. I'm not sure if I, deserve all of that, but definitely thank you so much for all the love and affection. It has been almost a second life for me, and I'll start right at the start. So, around 3 years back, I just like any other working professional. I was, doing too many things. I was working very hard, 16 to 18 hours a day. Like most IT professionals, I had a bohemian lifestyle. I used to work. I used to, play. I used to go and do my gymming every day, heavy exercises. And I used to also party a lot. We used to say work hard and party harder. That was our motto in those days. So I was drinking quite a bit during the weeks. And then I was also a smoker for almost 25 to 30 years. So, uh, I mean, at that point of time, I really enjoyed the lifestyle. I thought that this is how one should be living life, and doing the best they can on the professional and physical front, and also enjoying themselves. And I believe a lot of people in today's generation follow the same lifestyle. What I wasn't knowing at that point of time was I was putting my body under tremendous stress. And in 2019 March, I saw a lump on my chest. I went to the doctors, and initially I didn't think much about it. But then on Rani's insistence, I went and saw my doctor, and my doctor was also saying that, hey, Pravin, lumps keep coming and going, so you don't have to take it too seriously. But let's get it checked. So a few ultrasound, X-rays, and biopsies later, we got to find out that it was cancerous, and I was identified as a male breast cancer person. So I was diagnosed with male breast cancer, which is a rare form of cancer for males specifically. My doctor didn't know what to do about it either. Then I went to a cancer specialist. I was told that I would have to undergo surgery. So I underwent a surgery in 2019, and then I was put on some medication, which is called hormonal medication called tamoxifen. Subsequently, I also did some tests which to determine if chemotherapy was right for me, and try and understand my mindset. I was completely, at that point of time, following what my doctor was saying, and the doctor said that, Pravin, we may have to do chemo, but I'm going to have you undergo a test. If the test results come back as it's called an oncotype RX test, which basically uh, confirms whether you are a candidate for chemotherapy or not, whether your body will react to chemo positively or not. So as the doctor said, I underwent that test, and it was determined that chemo would not work for me. So in that case, we went ahead with surgery and hormonal treatment. But I went back to my lifestyle again. I was still working my odd hours. I was still, as soon as my surgery scars healed, I went back to my gymming, my running, and everything, and drinking again, and eating all kinds of fast foods as I was in those days. 1 year down the line in 2020, there was again another lump. It was a small one, but again, I saw my doctor. He said, Pravin, we'll get it biopsied. We got it biopsied, and we figured that it is a recurrence. So again, we went through another surgery. This time, the doctor recommended I undergo radiation therapy so that it doesn't come back. I underwent radiation therapy, and when I got back, I was again, under the impression that, okay, the doctor's done his job. We did a PET scan and everything was fine. And the reason I bring this up is this is a pattern. You have a problem, you don't understand enough of it, you go to the expert tells you what to do, you follow the expert advice, and once you get a PET scan done, it shows all clear. We take it as it's all clear, but trust me, it's not. Your body does a lot of things underneath, and we'll come to that in detail, fair amount of detail. So again, coming back to my point, after the recurrence, the radiation, I went back to my old lifestyle again. It was New Year's time in 2020. 2021 was just around the corner. We had a grand party, and after that, there was Valentine's Day in February 2021. My kids had prepared a beautiful meal, and they said that today, Papa and Mama, you're going to relax, and we're going to treat you to this amazing food. For some reason, I was feeling breathless. Just a week back, my wife was also feeling breathless. My kids were feeling breathless. So we assumed that it would be COVID. I wasn't feeling up to it. I went to sleep earlier on that Valentine's Day. And when I got up the next day morning, I had severe chest congestion, and I wasn't able to breathe. This kept on increasing to a point where my wife and kids also had the same symptoms. So, but they got better over a period of a week or so. Mine kept on getting worse to a point where I wasn't able to climb a flight of stairs. I had to sit twice, just to climb that flight of stairs. So it came to a point where, I told Rani that, Rani, we got to go to the doctors again. Something seems to be seriously wrong. We went to my PCP, that is my general practitioner doctor. And when she saw me, she's kind of checked me with her stethoscope, and she said, Pravin, your right lung has collapsed. It's not functioning. You've got to go to the ER right away. ER is the ICU equivalent of India. So I rushed myself with my wife. I couldn't drive, so she drove me to the hospital. We got myself admitted there. And in the next couple of days, what unfolded was My entire right pleura was full of fluid, and my lung was not able to expand because of that. So my lung was not functioning, right lung, and there was water, fluid filled up in the pleura. Uh, and pulmonologist actually helped us, and he drained out all this fluid through a process called thoracynthesis, and eventually I was able to breathe again, and they sent that liquid which they had drained for test purposes. What they figured out is that it was cancerous, and this time the cancer had now spread to my lungs, my esophagus, my thorax, my lymph nodes, and my bones. So essentially, my entire abdomen region was that's where the cancer had spread. And at that point of time, after getting discharged from the ER, I went and saw my oncologist. My oncologist told me, I asked him, "Hey, doctor, how serious is this?" And he said, "Pravin, this is very serious." I said, "How much time do you think I have?" And just like any other IT professional, project manager, I wanted to project manage my life, and I was trying to see how much, what was left and what could I do. The doctor said that, "Pravin, you got 6 months to live, at the most a year, if you're lucky, but things are progressing at a very fast rate." That shook me at the core actually when he said that, and he made mention that a couple of times, saying that it's not to worry, there is a standard of care that we can follow. So I realized that I had to I have to, at that point of time I realized that something drastically needed to change, but I didn't know what to do. I was very scared. I came back home. My first knee-jerk reaction was, what happens to me and my kids, my wife and my kids, if something were to happen to me? So I rushed the next day. I made a list of all the things that I needed to do. I took Rani to the bank. We got her added to all the bank accounts. Then we went to a lawyer. We started drafting up my will. So things got a bit, scary at that point. Incidentally, I used to cry every night thinking that it's all over. And one of the days when I was crying, Rani came and she hugged me. Just give me a moment. So Rani came and she hugged me, and she said, "Pravin, if you were destined to be dead, you wouldn't be here sitting and crying. There seems to be a larger purpose. Please don't give up so easily. I think we are going to get over this." I don't know where she came from and what she was trying to tell me. But when she did, just give me a moment. Sorry about that.
Reshma, this is so fascinating. So fascinating. And we can understand, we can completely understand how you're feeling, both of you. So sorry to, in a way, asking you to recollect all of those sad memories, but then you have learned from those, and then you've gone forward and you're sharing all that with us. So we feel really delighted and humbled, of course. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Dada. I always get bottled up at this point. For some reason, I can't identify it, but this was a turning point. Something in me clicked, and I decided not to give up so easily. So one of the things, and incidentally, see how things happen. And I would call it holy providence, or some divine grace, as one may say. One of my best friends, he actually he's in India. He's probably listening to this call right now. So he said, "Pravin, I can't be with you in the US, but what I can do for you is," he's an engineer like me. He said, "Let's try and figure this out. What is cancer all about?" So he started researching upon cancer, reading upon cancer, and believe me, this is not general Google reading. Okay, this is going to research papers and trying to understand what was the research being done that has been published around cancer. We also started following certain people who were doing offbeat research on cancer. People like Thomas Sayfield or Dr. Berg, as some of you guys have probably know about. There's a lady called Brooke Goldner who's doing research on inflammations and so on. You've probably seen her videos. So we started following these guys, and we both he and I used to start huddling and trying to figure out what we need to be doing. He said, Pravin, I can't be with you in the US, so I can't help you logistically. I can't take you to the doctor and get you back. But what I can do for you is I can research this for you. That was amazing. Now, the second thing is, another friend of mine, he gave me a book, and this book was called The Only Answer to Cancer by Dr. Leonard Coldwell. And the book had 385 specific things that you can do to cure cancer. They were very eclectic from all over the place, but they are well cataloged. And this book, actually, when I started reading it, it was anti-establishment to a large extent, which I can understand. But there was a lot of good wealth of information around what can be done or what has been done in ancient traditions in India, in China, in some of the other parts of the world to fight cancer. So I started reading up on that. Incidentally, along the way, my friend Zarir, who was also doing this research with me, he said that he had a nutritionist, and his name is Omkar Chincholkar, and Omkar also wanted to help out. So me, Omkar, and Zarir started reading up. Omkar has been through me all through this journey, even till date. He's my nutritionist. I see a message. Name of the book is The Only Answer to Cancer by Leonard Coldwell. So Omkar, myself, and Zarir started reading up, and one of the things that we and don't worry about the book. I'm going to mention what all I learned in this talk itself, so you'll get a head start. So one of the things that we started doing was if the nutritionist Omkar said, Pravin, he started explaining the effect of carbohydrates on our body. One of the things that I also noticed was one thing that struck me, and in our conversations this came up, was what did a lion have 200,000 years back? He had animals for food. He was a carnivore. What does a lion have today? He is a carnivore. He continues to be that. His food has not changed. They may be getting extinct, but their food hasn't changed. What was a deer having in 200,000 years back? They're eating plants and grass and leaves. What do they have today? They have the same thing. Then what is a human? What did a human have 200,000 years back for eating? And what does he eat today? So this question, when it came up, we realized that our lifestyle or our diets have changed drastically, and we don't have any control over what we eat. We have been bombarded with so much information on the internet, on Google, YouTube. There are so many new diets that are coming up, new types of foods that are processed in nature, which we are subjected to. And it kind of blew my mind. And because I was looking at it from a personal survival standpoint, I realized that I had to change my diet. So my first reaction that I did was I was looking up a video by Dr. Bishwarup Chaudhary, and he claimed that stage 4 cancers can be reversed in 3 months. And he had a specific diet. And what I realized was I started following that diet. But one thing I realized as soon as I started on the diet was everything in the diet was plant-based. It was specifically going back to what we were eating 200,000 years back. As a hunter-gatherer, we were either having these plant-based foods, or we are having fish or smaller animals like chicken or birds and so on. So I stuck to the plant-based diet, and that's how we started. Now, incidentally, Rani was of the opinion that we should change the doctor as well. Praveen, a doctor who's kind of given up on you and says you've got only 6 months to live doesn't seem to have a lot of hope and isn't very positive. So the thing that we did was we changed my doctor, and I got myself into Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is purely a research-based cancer hospital. And the moment we went to them, we found an amazing doctor who she actually studied my case, and she said, Pravin, we need to identify what is it that what kind of mutations are happening in your body. Now, I had done a genetic testing 2 years back in 2019, but in 2021 she made me undergo the genetic test again, and science is progressing every day. So within these 2 years, they were able to identify a lot of new genetic mutations. And in my case, they were able to come back with the specific genetic mutation which was happening, which was called PIK3 CA. And the moment that happened, she said, Pravin, I'm going to for this particular type of mutation, we just have one medical option. But if that doesn't work, then we are out of options. But there is a clinical trial. Would you like to enroll? So I got myself enrolled in that trial. And then, so now I was doing multiple things. I had a new doctor. I was on a clinical trial. But before I started on the clinical trial, my doctor told me to go off all sorts of medication. So there is a baselining period in a clinical trial, which is for a period of 5 weeks. So she made me go off all medication for 5 weeks. Now imagine my situation. My cancer is progressing really fast. I've got only 6 months, as my previous doctor had identified. And my new doctor is saying that, Pravin, go off all medication for 5 weeks. But I don't know, somewhere I felt that whatever I was doing was right. I was following the diet very seriously. My nutritionists are already planned out what I should be eating in lunch, dinner, everything. And we were actually talking about micros and macros, and what is the amount of carbs I should be having, and limiting it to what kind of food I should be having. So we were kind of looking at it very scientifically. 5 weeks. So I did a PET scan and genetic marker tests at the start of the baselining period of 5 weeks, and then we did one after. And the moment no, it was a different. I see the chat message. It was a different drug. It's coded as GDC 0077. It's still a trial drug. So in any case, coming back, when where was I?
No, you were I'll interrupt here for a second. I'm going to ask you a question, because you said that for 5 weeks you had completely stopped all medicines, right?
Yes.
And during that time you were taking a completely plant-based diet. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were told by your nutritionist that you are going to eat this for breakfast, this for lunch, and this for dinner. I'm
Right.
just curious to know, see, one of the things we promote and we very strongly advocate in our program is we should not be eating when we are hungry. So in these
Yes.
3 meals or whatever number of meals you were eating every day, were you getting really hungry at all?
No, and thank you, Dada, for bringing this up. He was giving me the lunch and dinner, but I was also on a 16/8 fast. I had started fasting by then, which was intermittent fasting. So there was no breakfast. And initially, it was a bit of a challenge to get on a fast. But and again, the science behind it, as in our discussions, was 200,000 years back, we didn't get food at our beck and call. In today's world, you open the refrigerator and you have stuff there waiting for you to be consumed. So I realized that I have to live like a person who's staying in in that old age, 200,000 years back. So I was doing intermittent fasting of 16/8. We had started with that. Whenever I was hungry, my meals were well defined by my nutritionist. They were completely plant based. And post that, what I also started noticing was, in that 5 week period, after my 5 weeks, the second test which was done, my cancer markers had halved. So they had come from, and I'll share the values. The acceptable value for a CA15-3 cancer marker is 0 to 31, which is a normal range. My before baselining, my value was 830s.
Oh my God.
And after the baselining, it came down to 410 or something about thereabouts.
Wow.
Similarly, my other cancer marker, CA, which is cancer embryonic antigen, was the acceptable range is 0 to 5, and my value was 44. It came down to 20. So,
Fantastic. So during this time, you were eating, I'm assuming you were eating only twice because you were doing an 8-hour eating
yeah,
window and 16-hour
yes,
fasting window, right? Only
yes.
two meals. Was there anything in between you were eating? Were you getting hungry at all in between?
I wasn't getting hungry because I was so driven by the fact that I had to get over this. I didn't have an option. It was more of survival. But as I started seeing these results, I realized that this thing seems working. And then I did start asking my nutritionist that if I did feel hungry, what should I eat? And we started adding some things in that, like nuts and certain antioxidants like strawberries, and I'll actually get into those details a bit.
Were you
uh,
getting hungry during that time? Did you feel really hungry in that 8-hour window?
it was not real hunger. It was
Craving.
it was, yeah, it was a slight craving that I used to have. And if I had the cravings, I used to have the nuts or the strawberries and any of these
Okay.
berries.
All right. Go ahead, please. Yeah, thanks.
So now what happened is, my the moment my before the uh, uh, drug trial started, and the doctor saw the results. I also, by the way, my PET scan results came back, and the PET scan showed that my sizes had decreased by huge amounts, even in the scans. So now that kind of created a huge hustle and bustle within my hospital. People used to research, nurses started calling me, they started asking me what's going on. I started sharing what I was doing, but I saw that the appetite for the diet part was not really that. I was actually put on to an integrative medicine doctor, and with whom I had a conversation, and we spoke about all the things I was doing, and he said that I was on the right diet and I should continue doing it.
What were
So
you
with
actually
that,
eating?
so I was one thing that my logic was essentially I had to eat vegetables, and during those times, the vegetables that I need to be eating should be cruciferous vegetables. So these cruciferous vegetables, we made a list of all these: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, mushrooms, cabbage, cauliflower, and what else? Bell peppers, yeah, mooli, and so
So
those were
all
all the
mostly
vegetables.
vegetables, no fruits, or what kind of fruits were you eating?
Uh, I was not eating fruits, Dada, at that point of time, because we wanted to limit the glucose in my body to
Okay,
the fair minimum. And specifically for cancer, I know that fruits I should have eat. A lot of people could eat, but because it has got fructose, and at that point of a time, I didn't know whether I knew that sugar was bad for cancer, but whether that sugar came from natural sources or processed sources, I didn't want to take a chance. So I kept
correct.
fruit away for that time. So I went ahead with the vegetables. Now, one thing that also struck me was, in those days, how were people cooking? They didn't have cooking oils. Cooking oil was invented much later. So what were they really cooking in? They were cooking in water, you know. So how, in today's time, if I were to cook in water, how could I cook it? Then I said, okay, a pressure cooker is something that I could cook it in, give it a couple of, so that it becomes palatable, at least soft enough for me to chew. And we started steaming some of these veggies, 8 type of vegetables in every meal. And then there were some juices I used to have, a green juice and a red juice. The red juice was beet, tomato and carrot, again steamed to a certain extent and then blended. And in the green juice I had spinach, moringa and kale. So uh, so I was having this plate of fruit, vegetables, and then these two juices. And sometimes I used to have fish for protein, but it was mostly this plant-based diet. And if I felt hungry, I used to have certain nuts and
Which nuts were
straw.
allowed for you at that time?
At that point of time, I was just having walnuts and pecans and almonds. I was told to also have peanuts and cashew nuts, but in lower quantities. And again, as I started reading up, I realized that the carbohydrate content in peanuts and cashew nuts is slightly higher. So we started limiting my carbohydrate intake, net carbs, to less than 30, which is also a ketogenic diet. But very honestly, more than the ketogenic, my focus was on reducing the amount of carbs, because that is what was feeding the cancer cells. I was also doing a lot of fasting, because fasting actually aids the ketogenic process, and effectively after the ketogenic process, it also aids autophagy, which is a process which gets kicked off, in which the good cells of the body starts, eating up the bad cells of the body. This typically happens after a fast of 24 to 20 to 24 hours. So I started doing a lot of fasting. I was eating this diets, and it was all working out. Now, during this whole process, one thing I realized is, what I'm inherently doing is I'm giving my body food that is easy to digest. And this whole game seems to be an energy game. My body is somehow, yeah, it has I'm giving it food in its purest form. It creates energy from this food, and that energy is used for my day-to-day activities, and it is also a portion of that is used for my healing. So I started thinking, okay, what can I do on the energy front? What is it that I can do more? So as I was reading, I realized that activity needs to be started. Your body needs, it's like an engine, right? So you need to well oil it, and it has to keep working. So I asked my doctor, can I go for a walk? She said, yes. So I walked for 2 weeks, and then I said, can I start running, doctor? Jogging. She said, okay. I wouldn't, advise you to be very extreme like in the past, but at least you can start with short jogs. I started jogging to a point where today I'm running almost 5 kilometers every day. And then what happened was, one more thing happened is, I started as I was eating this diet, one thing that happened inadvertently was that Ashtanga Yoga says that the first thing towards starting on a spiritual journey through yoga is by controlling your diet, yama and niyama. So in my case, this was happening inadvertently because of the
Correct.
diet that I. And the moment I started doing this diet, and I was also reading up on yoga because I wanted to understand the concept of prana and energy, and how I can conserve energy and divert it towards healing. So I read multiple books. I read B.K. Iyengar's Light on Yoga. I read books by Satyanand Saraswati on bandhas and asanas and so on. And one thing I realized was, just like our entire body, each and every cell, just like we have an excretory system and a system through which we intake food, our body also, each of the cells has an input and an output system. The input system is the blood vessels in the body, and the output system is the lymph node systems, lymphs in the body. So I said, I have to clean up this system somehow. So while I was giving it the right food, how can I clean up this system? So what I read somewhere in Dr. Leonard Coldwell's book, and also in some of the other books, that you need to oxygenate your body. If you oxygenate your body, cancer cells do not survive. And the ideas that were given was, get into a hyperbaric chamber, which is like an oxygen chamber, and sit in it. Now I found that a bit far-fetched. I said, okay, I can't find out where an hyperbaric chamber can be, but what I can do is I can actually, yoga teaches pranayamas, and these pranayamas allow me to intake a lot of fresh air, which my lungs probably need at this point of time. So I started doing pranayamas every day morning. I would get up, I would do my Kapalbhati, my Bhastrika, my Udgit pranayams, my Omkaras, and Anulom Viloms, and everything.
Did you learn that
And
from
then
somebody in specific? Did you learn that from somebody specifically, or did you learn that from reading the books or YouTube?
I actually learned it. One is, my grandfather had taught me when I was a kid, so I had that background, and he had even taught me the Surya Namaskaras. He had even taught me certain kriyas like Shankha Prakshalan and some of the other things. But
Did you do
with
Shankha
time,
Prakshalan while you were going through this whole therapy?
yes, I did Shankha Prakshalan as well. So Shankha
Okay.
Prakshalan is a ancient way of colon cleansing, which in today's time we do it through anima. So I realized that if I have to clean up my lymph system and everything, I needed to Shankha Prakshalan was, and this again, as I said, it came through God's grace. Now when I connect the dots, My grandfather having taught me Shankar Prakshalan in a way was and divine intervention even in the beginning, even before cancer was had affected me. So I realized that everything that happens in our lives is something, it has a meaning, and we may not understand the meaning at that point of time, but the dots do connect at some point. So I started following Shankar Prakshalan. I started doing the pranayamas, and my cancer markers continuously were decreasing. My scans showed a continuous improvement in the sizes. They kept reducing to a point where my doctor told me that, Pravin, there are only two people who are doing awesome on the trial. One is you, and there's another lady who's also on a plant-based diet. She said that inadvertently, and I realized that I was on the right track. Now, what happened is, subsequent to that, I also realized that when I every day, how do I spend? I started cataloging what is it that I do, and I had taken leave from my office, so whole day I was only dedicating to this work, of mine, sadhana, as I would call it.
So you see,
I
in the
started.
beginning, Praveen, in the beginning, you had experienced breathlessness even when you were walking one flight of steps. And from
Right.
there to now, this is how many months in which, you did this whole plant-based diet, you are doing this sadhana, and then you are now able to walk and jog for some time. How
Yeah,
much time did it take for this transformation to take place?
it happened within 6 months, very honestly, but
See?
for the last.
Fantastic. So in 6 months, of the bottom line, I'm trying to conclude from this that in 6 months, somebody can purify one's diet and overcome even the most invasive kind of cancer, which is so fascinating. See, we've been trying to promote a completely plant-based diet and mostly natural diet, of course, only for those people who are able to digest it. So in your case, you were eating things that were easy to digest, so you were either boiling them or steaming them and then consuming them, but still only plant-based diet. So those people who are able to handle completely natural or raw diet, we advise and we do, I mean, I myself take at least 70, 80, 90% raw diet, and I'm just fine because that's how our forefathers, ancestors were. What could a man eat if man did not have any tools at all of any kind? The only thing we could eat was low hanging fruit, which we could
Yes.
pluck. If and since you mentioned yoga, if you look at the first principle of yoga, what is the first principle of yoga in Ashtanga Yoga? Ahimsa.
Yeah.
What is ahimsa? Ahimsa is not hurting anything or anybody. So what kind of food can we actually eat which is totally ahimsak? The food that nature is wanting you to have. What is that food? Ripe fruit at any given time, in any given season. So whatever fruit, when we touch the fruit, that fruit comes into our hand. So the plant is begging, you eat this. If we eat
Yeah.
70, 80% fruits, overall diet, we would be doing so well. It would be amazing. So that's what I think we all need to move towards. So that's the kind of I'm so fascinated. It's माझ्या अंगावर शहारे येत आहेत. I'm getting goosebumps by listening to all this, because this is whatever our contemplation has been. This contemplation is being proven in your case. So I'm
Yeah.
delighted. I'm fascinated by this. Please go ahead.
And after the 6 months, it's been almost 1.5 years since March of 2021 that I've been following this. The first 6 months was very rigorous, and then the subsequent 1 year I have been doing it. Of course, I have added a lot of things in that. One of the things was I started cataloging as to how am I spending my time every day, and I realized that I was spending my time doing a lot of meaningless thinking. And that thinking was I started thinking, okay, if I'm thinking so much, my mind must be using up that energy for thinking, and then my emotion, my body was creating emotions within me, and that all this emotion and thinking, not all of it is meaningful. So there is a good chance that I can reduce the amount of thoughts in my mind, which can actually, that energy conserved will go towards healing. So I started figuring out ways of how I can incorporate meditation into my life. And initially, it was through a lot of these guided meditations which I saw on YouTube. But sooner and very soon I started getting in touch with people who are doing meditations. There were certain Swamijis who I got in touch with, and also some people who've been doing meditations. And I
Raw,
ate, raw and steamed both actually.
fruits.
Oh, fruits I was avoiding to a large extent.
Only berries,
Only
like
berries, yeah,
strawberries.
strawberries and blueberries and raspberries. But again, as I
That was
mentioned,
because of the
they,
sugar content, right, Praveen?
exactly, that was because of the sugar content.
Great.
Exactly.
And what about grains, Pravinchi? Did you have
No,
any grains?
No, I did not have any grains again, because grains, if you now think about it, like the 200,000 year back old person, okay, why was grains invented? Because of population increase, everyone had to be fed, so there was an industrialized way of creating food. Is grains, the though it is coming from the ground, it has been industrialized. So I said I don't want to have anything that is industrialized. I want to have everything that comes naturally. And that was just my thing. I'm not saying grains is bad or good. What I do know that scientifically, certain type of grains, especially millets, they don't give you a sugar spike immediately. So the absorption of those in the body takes time. So, and everything is, to a large extent, carbohydrate plays a big role in everything. And again, I can quickly tell you what the game is. See, what happens is the moment your body intakes a lot of carbohydrates, it finally breaks down into glucose. Your body does not like glucose. Its first reaction to glucose is it wants to pump it out of the body. So what it does is it creates insulin. Now, the body has a limit to how much insulin it can create. If you're going to have fast foods that are going to input a lot of carbohydrates in your bloodstream, which is not easy for the insulin that the body can create, you are going to run into a deficit of insulin, which is when you go to a doctor and the doctor says you're a pre-diabetic, so please have metformin, which is an external source to generate more insulin. Now you continue to with your diet of high carbs, and you continue to have metformin to a point where the metformin is now insufficient to create the required amount of insulin. Then what happens is, you at some point, the doctor says abhi metformin ka highest dose is what I have given you already. Now only thing you can do is take insulin injections. But really, if you go to see what is the problem here, the problem is not insulin. The problem really is that you are giving your body high carbohydrates. Now, when you give your body high carbohydrates, what happens is the insulin is the diabetics part of it. So high carbohydrates, if you reduce, you will see that your sugar in the body will go down, and eventually you will overcome diabetes also, which I have seen a lot of my friends do. And Omkar, the nutritionist, I know that he's been working on this. He's been able to do that for a lot of people. The other thing about carbohydrates is a lot of these processed foods are actually made in oils which are high in omega 6. So canola oil, vegetable oil, all these oils are very high in omega 6. Omega 6 is a poison, from a fatty acid standpoint. Your olive oil is omega 9, which is slightly better than omega 6, but still it is not as great. What you really need is omega 3 oils. And omega 3 oils comes from flax seeds, it'll come from walnuts. Those are the things, chia seeds, those are the things you should consume, which will give you more omega 3. Now, why omega 3? Because omega 3 actually reduces the amount of inflammation in your body. Now, why does inflammation happen? If you actually go step down, you will realize that your body has only one mechanism to break food, and that is to secrete acid. So anytime you put food into your body, what happens is your stomach and your intestines and everything starts secreting enzymes, microbiomes, and acids. And all of these actually start working on the food that you just consumed and breaks it down. Now, if you want to make it easier for the body, you give it food where it doesn't have to pump in more acid, because the more acid it gives, what will happen? Your body will become more acidic. So people have this acid reflux and acidic problems is because of excess acid. Now I'll ask you to do one simple experiment. You take a acid and you put your finger in it, and you keep putting your finger in it for 1 hour, 2 hours, one day. What will happen? it will burn. The finger will burn. So now imagine you are eating foods and your body is creating those acids, and those acids, your stomach lining, your intestine lining is subjected to it on a sustained basis. What is going to happen? Ulceritis, colitis, inflammation, acid reflux, all these things. What happens because of this is inflammation is called. Inflammation means jakham, some form of,
Injury.
wound, injury, wound. Now, what are those foods that create inflammation is what you need to stay away from. Omega 6 is the food that creates, or acids are the ones that create inflammation. So if you reduce the omega 6 content and you increase the omega 3 content, your inflammation will go down, your acid will go down, your body will become slightly more alkaline, and a lot of problems that you're faced with, like diabetes, ulceritis, colitis, indigestion, acidity, all of these will go away.
Fascinating. So after having gone through this whole thing for about 6 months, at the end of 6 months, you were almost free of cancer, according to the medical tests. Is that what happened?
Yes. Yes.
Exactly on World Cancer Day.
On World Cancer Day, I remember I was in the train and I was coming back, and that was also the day when I have to go and meet my doctor once in every 4 weeks.
Okay.
My doctor actually called me, and I was on the train back. I had given my tests, I had done my scans, and I was on the way back, and she'd got the results, and she said, Pravin, I wanted to share this good news that you are completely cancer free. And I was so happy. I started crying in the train, and there was an there was an old person there. He before I started crying, what happened was, the train was a bit full and I was sitting, and there was this old person who was looking for a place. So I'd given him my seat to sit on. And that's when the doctor actually called, and I was talking to her, and as soon as she told me I'm completely free, I started crying. And this person who had given my seat to, he felt guilty that probably I'm crying because I am in pain and I needed to sit down, and I had given him my chair. So he started saying, no, please sit. And it was a funny thing where I am crying and then he's trying to get me to sit. And eventually what happened was, I told him that this is what my doctor told me. And then he started cheering me up. And it was, in a few moments, all the people around me were cheering me, in that train. So it was
So
an
that
amazing
was the World
experience.
Cancer Day, huh?
Yeah, it was on February 5th or something. Yeah.
It was
So this
exactly on
incident happened. Your doctor called you and she spoke to you on the World Cancer Day and told you the good news that you're out of cancer.
Yes, and it was very surreal because it felt very dramatic also for us at that point of time. But it was a very emotional moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. So see, we have now seen, I'm going to try to summarize what you have told me.
Sure.
You have a stage 4 cancer, was it, in the beginning?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
stage
Stage
4,
four,
the
it
doctor has
started
raised
with-
his hands. Huh?
Yeah, stage 2, then it had escalated to stage 4, where the doctor said 6 months to
Stage
live.
4 metastatic.
So between stage 2 and stage 4, how quickly did it progress?
It-
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months. After the radiation, it's
After the radiation, it skyrocketed.
Oh my God. So dekho, in 6 months, the cancer went from stage 2 to stage 4. And then thereafter, when you went on a completely plant-based diet, it went down from stage 4 to 0. Right? So cancer was cured. That was the great news. That was the big prize for you. Okay. But during this time, I'm imagining that your body weight might have gone down, your flexibility would have increased, your stamina would have increased, your energy level would have increased, correct?
Yes. Yes. And Dada, there was one more thing that I want to highlight. A lot of people who are undergoing a serious health condition, they also, and I was mentioning this in between, was about the number of times they had unnecessary thoughts. One has to understand that 90% of thoughts that we have are completely useless. So the best way to deal with them is to sit quietly and some place and meditate for some time every day. I would recommend at least 15 to 20 minutes of meditation every day for people who are going through serious health condition, because that will calm their mind, and that energy that they are saving through because of avoiding unnecessary thoughts, that will get channelized towards healing again. It's all an energy game at the end of the day.
Correct. See, in fact, that was the last thing I was going to ask you, because so far what we have done is we've focused on your health, focused on your disease. So we've talked about disease reversal, we've talked about health gain, but the last part of this conversation is going to be your inner journey. So tell us about that.
So what happened, Dada, was I had started running by then, and I was one day I used to go to this running track where I used to go for a job, and it was an indoor running track because in New Jersey it gets quite cold. So when I was running, there was this person. I was listening to a podcast, and there was this person who was passing me. The moment he passed me, I suddenly started thinking of my college days, engineering college days. Now, because in those days I was observing everything that I was doing, I started questioning, why did I start thinking about my college days? What I realized was, when he passed me, he was wearing a floral deodorant, and that floral deodorant triggered some memory in my body, which started that chemical memory started triggering a thought process, and that thought process got me involved into a loop of my college thoughts. So I realized that this is how our mind works all the time. Something triggers it. Our body is a memory machine. Everything that we have experienced, learned, been taught, it has been stored in our bodies. You see something, it has got an artificial intelligence. And because I come from technology, it has got an artificial intelligence of its own. It is self-learning. It will take that memory, it will pick out something, some instance which is closest match, and the moment you get that closest match, it will start creating a thought around it. So that is when I realized that this thought mechanism is draining a lot of my energy, and I needed to stop this thought process. And while I was doing pranayamas, I realized that in a way I was focusing on my breath. So I was kind of quasi meditating only. So that became my pivot. From pranayamas, I started immediately after pranayamas, I realized I was in a good state to perform meditation. So then I started sitting and meditating, and all I did was observe my breath continuously. I sat in a particular position with Chin Mudra, and I started observing my breath, and I used to sit for hours at times.
See,
And
that is what our Guru Patanjali Muni tells us, right? Where is pranayama? First you do the yama, then niyama, then asana, then pranayama. So these are steps in this whole path. If you don't do the yam, niyam, asana, then pranayam will not happen. If pranayam is not done properly, then pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, samadhi will not happen. So a lot of times we try to get into this dhyana practice or meditation practice without having done these previous steps. And that's why dhyan doesn't happen. What happens to us is we are either anekagra, means we are thinking about so many things at a time, or if we want to sit down quietly, then we'll fall asleep. So that is shunyagra. That is the pattern we are used to, either anekagra or shunyagra. But with meditation, with this yoga practice, what we do is we discipline the mind so that we can bring the mind onto one point. So that is called ekagra. This is what was happening in your case. See, in your case, you were ekagra on how am I going to get well from this cancer. So although I'm sure that at that time it was extremely traumatic, at that time you were deathly scared, of course, of doing this, but therefore you're completely focused, ekagra on this one focus. That's what can take you where you cannot even imagine. So wonderful. That's such a fascinating journey. Go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Shall we take questions now, Pravin, from people?
Yeah, I think we should take questions.
So what I will do, Pooja, I'm going to try to say, okay, if people want to unmute themselves, then...
Can we take some from the chat? I think somebody is asking, was there no chemotherapy at all?
Yeah, I did not undergo chemotherapy. By then, what I had realized was, see, radiation, actually, therapy when I underwent, it changes the homeostasis of your body, because these are very, very heavy form of treatments. So essentially what you're trying to do is it tries to kill the cancerous cells, but in the process it kills a lot of other stuff also. Your body has a natural healing mechanism. The problem is we live in fast times today. We want immediate gratification. And in that process, chemotherapy does offer that, immediate gratification. There are a number of cancer cells in your body will come down, but it will affect your immune system. So one of the things that a lot of doctors did ask me, Pravin, why didn't you do chemotherapy? And I was for some reason not comfortable with subjecting my body to that form of treatment at that, and it so far has turned out well for me.
This is so fascinating. I think Shekhar here is raising his hand. He is wanting to talk. So I'm going to ask you to unmute, please. Shekhar Dada, go ahead, please.
Hi, Pravin. This is Shekhar here. It is fantastic to see you talk again about this subject, which is very close to my heart. I have been a biggest proponent of plant based treatment, as of course, if there are some people who use tulsi as in their making tea and all that, I highly strongly recommend that. My own research have shown that tulsi has 3 ingredients which are extremely powerful anti-cancer agents by themselves, and it's important that we can, and they are in picomole level. That's so powerful.
Shekhar Dada, one second. I need to credentialize you before this. For everybody's benefit, Shekhar Dada is a genetic scientist. Me and Shekhar Dada have been in regular touch. He is doing some amazing research on cancer, on genetics, and the main thing is in our conversations, Shekhar Dada always comes up with some amazing stuff. I do have to tell you that when you meditate, and if you meditate with a feeling of gratitude in your mind, the combination of meditation and gratitude is a killer combination.
Just one sec, Pravin. By mistake, I have muted you. So if you can unmute yourself and then complete your sentence. Sorry, I muted you by mistake.
No,
go ahead.
So what I was saying is, Shekhar Dada is a genetic scientist, and he and I have been tinkering with the. He's doing the major research. I am just experimenting it on myself. And one thing that we realized is, when in the meditative state, if you have a high feeling of gratitude, that emotion gratitude, it actually heals a person dramatically. And this gratitude, let me tell you what it means. Shekhar Dada taught me a meditation which is amazing. It's called the thank you meditation. So you sit in a place, and when you breathe in, you say thank, and when you breathe out, you say you. And think about it, everything around us we need to be thankful about. Today I'm thankful to Vikram Dada to haven't gotten this arranged. I'm sure some of you who are going through some serious ailments are very thankful that you were able to get some useful things out of this conversation. So gratitude is that one thing where we sometimes take everything around us so much for granted. We don't realize that everything we've got is a plus.
You see, in our yoga class, by the way, I should tell you this. We have, as a part of the Sattva program, we do a yoga class every day. Okay, 5 days a week. We have Yogacharya Rashmi Joshi, who is our Yogacharya. She teaches us yoga. After the yoga session, every day, Yogasana session, she will do yoga, pranayam both together. At the end of it, we do Shavasana, and then we get up and we bow down. Says, we bow down with gratitude to the Mother Earth, to the environment, and to yourself. See, we have to be grateful even to after all the blessings we have from nature and from our friends, family, and everybody. There is something called Atma Krupa. There has to be Ishwar Krupa, Santa Krupa, Guru Krupa, and ultimately Atma Krupa also has to happen. No, see, we have to forgive ourselves also. A lot of times what happens is we have so many regrets in the past. So we should be both thankful and forgiving, not of everybody, but also our own selves. So that was a fascinating thing. Shekhar Dada, you have to say
I just
something
want
about
to
this.
finish a few sentences. That's all.
Please.
Chemotherapy and radiation therapy, if you scan the scientific journal right now, you will see that all of these they kill the cancer cells, but they initiate cancer stem cell within the cancer mass, which are very, very drug resistant. So once from the cancer cells, if you get birth to cancer stem cells, it's very difficult now. So that's why I stay away from chemotherapy and radiation therapy, even though at the last moment people are just so overwhelmed with life and situation that they go for it. But I'm telling you, it is a bad situation then.
So great.
That's all.
I'm going to ask Ram has raised his hand. So Ram, can you please start your video and unmute yourself? Ram,
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity, sir.
you're most
Well,
welcome.
it's really a fascinating story, and it was really inspiring. Just had a one question on this, because you have spoke about omega-3 and other contents in the oil, but today's situation has come. I mean, we are following such a type of diet where we cannot cook anything which is really tasty, especially for kids. And so is that a clarified butter, ghee, what we call? Because that is actually one of the food which was prescribed in Ayurveda. So when we are talking about plant-based diet and all these things in this conversation, so I just thought, what is the content in the clarified butter, and does it really help when compares to other Western oils like chia oil or olive oil, which is not our ancestor, especially in India, has used them. So that's the only thing I had. So if anybody or any experts who are know about this, that would be very helpful. And really, thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Sure. So, Ram ji, what I know is, yes, you are right. Clarified ghee, clarified butter or ghee is a very good option as compared to vegetable oil or canola oil. So I have myself cooked at times. I mentioned that I sometimes have fish. I cook it in ghee actually. So if I have to cook something, then it has to be cooked in ghee. Though those times are very far and few. But if at all cooked food has to be consumed, then ghee is the way to go, from a cooking standpoint. Again, the reason for it is, first of all, it is zero carb. So there is no carbohydrate in ghee. And as rightly said, in our ancient times, our dadijis and nanijis used to feed us with ghee because it used to have a positive effect on our bodies, simply because it was easier to break down. So it is high fat. And again, now if I were to draw a parallel as to why ghee is good, and a lot of these new diets like ketogenic diet says that you should actually consume a lot of ghee, is because of the zero carb part of it. And ghee also does not create inflammation as those omega-6 cooking oils create, like canola oil and vegetable oil.
Okay, so Pravin, there is a question here, and we also promote not animal-based but plant-based diet. So typically, as a substitute for ghee, we suggest coconut oil, and coconut oil has all the same properties as ghee. Plus, it comes from nature, not from an animal. See, ghee used to be a good thing at one point in time because cows were very well cared for, and the milk we used to get from cows was pure at one time. But these days, cows are not treated as well. They are treated with hormones. They are artificially impregnated and things like that. So it's all industrialized now. So the ghee we get now is not as good as ghee we used to get, say, 100 years ago. So we would recommend to avoid the bad things that come with the ghee in today's age. We would substitute ghee with coconut oil, and that works just as well. I cook a lot of times in coconut oil. I stir fry my vegetables. I eat cooked food not as much as most people do. My cooked food percentage would be overall, if you look at it, 15-20% at the most. All right, most of my food is actually fruits and nuts. If I can remain on 100% raw diet, that works fantastic. I mean, people should do their experiment. People should actually consider joining our program for 3 months, which we run, sharing our experience. And we have our nutritionist, our sister Shweta Chikle, who monitors everybody. So Shweta, if you are ready and would like to say something, I would love for you to come on camera and say hello to everybody here. say hello to our brother Pravin, who has told us his fascinating story. Yes.
Yes, definitely. It was
Go
a
ahead.
fascinating journey and very nice to hear you, Praveen ji and Rani ji. You both were like, she was always supporting you. So that was very nice and fascinating to know. And we congratulate you that you had faith in this science and that's why you followed it so diligently. And the result is in front of everybody. And it's truly very good. Even we tell this story to everybody that we were hunter gatherers when we started. Okay, so we have graduated from being apes to human beings, and in that process when we started understanding that this much food is not enough, we used to eat, hunt for food, and then we used to walk for so many days, god knows. And then after that we used to, when we started cultivating greens, that is when we started storing it. Agriculture when came into picture, that was the time when all these diseases actually started. Okay, and even more so now that you correctly mentioned that, you know, we have everything available so easily nowadays. Initially we were like a family of 40 people, 50 people, and so we had to have very small amount of food. Whatever we was given in the house we used to eat. But now that is not the case. Now because we are in nuclear family and we easily pamper, we get pampered ourselves, we pamper our children also, and that's the reason why all these things are happening nowadays. All the non-communicable diseases nowadays are happening because of all these lifestyle changes. Okay, so
Yes.
अधोगती काय म्हणतो ना त्याला, काय म्हणतात दादा त्याला, प्रगतीमध्ये काय
Downward,
अधोगती.
downward slide. Adhogati is downward slide.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
progress, but it is
So
called
we are
regress.
progressing, but God knows we are also going downhill. So that's how it is. And yes, to coming to this question, ghee is a better option, we say, because it has good amount of fatty acids. But the ghee which is made from a proper cow,
Desi
okay,
cow.
cow's milk. Yes, they say cow's ghee is very good, not the buffalo's cow's ghee. And that too,
Yeah.
if it is made at home, it is good. You don't know what
Yeah,
comes when it is a
exactly.
packaged
Exactly.
ghee. Okay, so that is
Yeah.
also true. And at the same time, like Dada mentioned, we do substitute ghee with coconut oil. And although this is very expensive nowadays, it is not easy for everybody to go and get cold pressed oils. But coconut oil is something which is absolutely good for us. And because of the monounsaturated fatty acids, MCTs into it, it is very, very easily digested and it gives good amount of lubrication in the intestine, and it has many other benefits to it. So
Incidentally,
yes, ghee
Shweta,
instead of ghee.
in America, coconut oil, organic coconut oil is cheaper than ghee.
Really?
Yes. You will be surprised if
That's
you go
great.
to a big box store like Sam's Club or Costco or somewhere, if you buy a whole big bottle of coconut oil,
You
it
get
is cheaper than
big
ghee.
jar,
Yes.
big,
Wow,
such a big jar.
that's good.
Yes,
Very good.
excellent. So those who are listening to this program who are in the US, they should know that coconut oil is actually cheaper than ghee. So by all means, substitute your ghee with coconut oil everywhere, anywhere. I love
Yes,
coconut oil just like that.
yes,
I will
yes,
often eat my dates at the end of my meal. I have a sweet tooth, so I have to have a dessert.
yes.
I'll take the date, dip it in coconut oil and eat it. It's very tasty.
Right. So I just had one question to you, Praveen ji. Your
Yeah.
dietitian, you mentioned Mr. Omkar. So is he in India or is he in US? Where did you find him?
He's in India. As I mentioned, my friend Zarir Patel, the guy who was an engineer and who said I can't be with you physically in the
Yeah.
US, but
Yes.
who started researching. His wife had diabetes, and he used to go to Omkar, and Omkar helped her get reverse her diabetes. So
Yes.
Omkar was new to the cancer part of it, so he was keen to research, and he knew the nutrition aspects of things. So we were,
Yes.
it was by God's grace we found him, and then we collectively were able to research together. He
Yes.
runs a company called OmFit, and his endeavor is to change 1 billion lives,
Wow.
from diet. And I'm trying to help him and his team as much as possible. Anybody who is up
Right.
for good diet and nutrition,
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Really.
There are
Very
two
true.
more
Okay, see what we will do now. We
answers.
have been at this for more than an hour now, so we want to be respectful of people's times also. And we are going to take 2 or 3 more questions. There are 3 hands here. One is Nilesh, one is Amruta, and one is Ramakrishna. We are going to take their questions. So you'll have to Start your video, unmute yourself, ask the question, be brief, let Pravin answer that question. And then those who wish to learn more about Sattva, they can also contact us separately. I have given WhatsApp numbers. I've also given you a link. So please go to that link, see what we are doing, all the fun things we do, talk to us. And we have a holistic program, complete lifestyle management program, in which we will guide you based on our experience on how we can reverse diseases, how we can manage our weight, and how we can feel wonderful from within. So the inner journey is not what we talked about too much here, but the inner journey is just as fascinating as the physical journey or the disease reversal journey. So Nilesh, if you can unmute yourself, start your video, you can ask your question, please. Nilesh.
Yes, can you see me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi, I'm really appreciating Pravin sir and his wife and his family members who has gone through this journey, and this is really amazing and fascinating. I mean, a salute to them. Uh, I have been to the similar journey. In 2018, I conquered cancer, RCC metastasis, stage 4, with all raw food diet and gratification and affirmations. And within 9 months, I got out of cancer that time. Now, in after COVID, I could not continue that diet, so probably that could be the reason it got recurred. And since 2020, I am again fighting against cancer. So I have been through many things just because it is in the masticator region near my brain. So somehow, I don't know, my belief got shaken or something maybe. But recently now I'm going to start my raw food diet again, and I'm sure I will get out of it. So I mean, that is my journey. However, I have one question to Mr. Pravin sir, that what I faced a challenge for myself is doing this raw food diet was not easy initially, but then I could cope it with that. But then doing the don'ts thing, like don'ts means not having the food which I like let's say cooked food, or let's say daily sometimes the poha is cooked in the home, or any small food which is cooked and it is not allowed. How to basically handle our mental state, or I mean, I have achieved a mental toughness to the great level, to be honest, but I mean, that is still a challenge for me to follow the don'ts completely. I follow it up to 80%, but sometimes it becomes very difficult. So what kind of, I don't know, technique we can use a word, or how we can handle that basically. Just one more point. Recently, I have completed a radiation, which was a wrong decision, I feel like nowadays, because there are many side effects and all. Just I completed a proton radiation. But anyway, I'm coming out of that as well. And I am sure with raw food diet, I will be detoxifying all the toxins and boosting the immunity basically. So
Great
anyway,
question. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead,
that
Pravin, please.
the answer I can get will be really helpful.
So, Neelaji, I'll first answer the first part of it. There are foods that even all of us like, and you will always feel tempted. But just like a small child, what happens is a small child doesn't have any memory developed. So when he's trying to come off a bed, if you've actually observed him, is he first tries to lower himself. If he can find the ground by touching his feet, then he comes down. But if not, then he will go back again onto the bed. So because he doesn't have a memory of the first time, especially when he's doing this, so because he doesn't have a memory, his natural survival instinct kicks in. Now in our case, what happens is, we've already had poha, let's say, and we love it. So the memory of poha is actually making you go towards poha. But the fact of the matter is, your basic survival instinct is telling you, no, don't have this. You are going to fall if you have this. So it's going to be a battle. But the way I had convinced myself was that I cannot have this if I have to survive. If I have to survive, I shouldn't be eating this. And then another thing that I realized is, my taste is only in this portion of my this thing, in body. So will I let one tongue define what my entire body, what is good for my entire body or not? For a sensation which feels great, should I be subservient to that tongue, or should I get control over it and say, no, I am going to go ahead and eat only what is good for me?
This
So
is
Nilesh ji,
precisely the spiritual sadhanas. You know, this is now you are getting into the spiritual sadhana part. This is exactly what Gnaneshwar Maharaj tells us. Go ahead, please.
So this is what I was reminding myself every time. I did not cheat for the first 1 year and 3 months or something, 15 months totally. 1 year, 3 months, I didn't cheat at all. Then after I was told that everything is good and all that, then I have had, and by the way, you mentioned poha. I like poha myself. I have had poha myself, but it's very once in a while I'll have something like that. But I will stick to my raw diet, because what I also realized is, when I eat something of that sort, it actually throws my digestion off, one. And the second thing is, it disturbs my meditations and my other activities as well. And it takes me some time to come back again. So because I want to pursue that line, I prefer not to cheat.
Great. Thank you, Pravin. We are going to take 3 more questions. Amruta, if you can unmute and start your video.
Yes, sir. Hello, Pravin sir. This is Amrita here. So I've been diagnosed with, breast cancer, stage 4. So I also have this PIK3A mutation, and I've been following plant-based diet. So I have had, initially I was on hormonal therapy, then I was on so then one hormonal therapy didn't work, then after that it was surgery, then another hormonal therapy which didn't work, and I had gone through one low level of chemo, and then now so there is targeted therapy. So post chemo I had stopped all the medication. So I had made up my mind to not go in this path again, and then I had stopped the medications, and then I was following the raw diet. But unfortunately it didn't work out for me in that case, and I had progression in my liver. So I had to go back to a targeted therapy for PIK3A mutation right now. So I'm undergoing the targeted therapy, plus my dietary changes I'm continuing with little changes according to the targeted therapy that I'm right now undergoing. I just needed your help in so what kind of marker tests were you doing, what kind of the other tests, and along with that, how were you managing the internal part of it? I mean, other than the diet part of it. So like what else? So if we can, touch base with you, personally, is it okay with you? Like, how can I, yeah.
Yes,
How?
Ji, my wife has already posted my phone number and my email address. Let's talk about this. But there is one more thing that you mentioned and is very interesting. This is a game of hormones, especially when it comes to breast cancer, which is related to your ER, PR, and HER hormones. So you have to understand that, and in yogic terms, there are 7 chakras in our body, which are called, Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, and so on, all the way till Shastrara. Each of these actually coincides with a gland, and and each of these glands are the places where hormones are actually secreted and collected. So when you have any hormonal related problems, it is typically due to the imbalances of these glands. So what we need to do is to understand that, and a lot of times this chemotherapy and radiation creates those disturbances also while they are attacking the cancer cells. As Shekhar Dada mentioned, they create a breeding ground for further cancer. But having said that, they also disturb the homeostasis of your body and your chakras. So we need to, I will talk separately on this, Amrutaji, but one thing is, there are clinical trials happening all around, and I will share all my, for PIK3CA, there are quite a few trials that are going on. So I'm not sure how much of those are happening in India and through which hospital, but we can discuss and figure out.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
That would be
Thank
a
you,
great
Pravin, a
help.
lot.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's talk to Ramakrishna Prabhu. Ramakrishna Prabhu, if you would.
Yes. Hi. I'm Ramakrishna.
Hi, Ramakrishna.
Hi. Yeah, actually, I'm a diabetic from last 10 years. I'm insulin dependent. And actually, my pancreas got diminished. is it possible to get back to my pancreas to that normal stage and my diabetes reversal? It will be happen because it's actually from last 4 or 5 years onwards. I tried for the raw diet and so many diets, but even though I didn't succeed in that one. Actually, what is the best way to
Shall we,
do?
Pravin, shall we ask
Hello.
our sister Shweta to answer this,
Yes.
please?
Yes. I just wanted to know, since how many years are you suffering from diabetes?
From 10 years.
And are you on completely taking insulin, or are you still on medicines and insulin, a combination of
Actually,
both?
I'm taking 4 times insulin and one tablet. It is Crean tablet, 10 Crean 10K.
I think we should set up a time to talk to Ramakrishna Prabhu
Actually,
separately.
we
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yes, because we need to know whether the pancreas are completely not functioning right now, or what is happening, and what kind of diet are you following since so many days. So we need to take a recall, and then probably we can talk about it. Yes.
Sure. Could you please share me your contact details?
Yeah, I'm going to send you a number on which you can send a WhatsApp. Then we can set up a time to talk to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you so much.
That would be great. Thank you, Ramakrishna Prabhu.
Thank you.
Ramakrishna ji, Shekhar Dada has also messaged that you should, if you know how to do Surya Namaskars, if you could start doing them, they will also help.
Sure, definitely. I will do. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Anand Kothari, then next, last question now.
Hello.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Your question, please, Anandji.
My salute to Pravin ji, and thanks to Dr. Vikram and Pooja for organizing such a valuable program. Hello.
Thank you, Anand.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I am suffering from first stage prostate cancer, and I have taken 2 hormone injection, and I have been prescribed 20 frequency VMAT radiation. After that, I have taken 12, and 8 is pending. Now, as I heard, the radiation again accelerates the. Now I want to know, can I have already taken 12 and 8 is left over. So can I stop at this stage? And second is this, that as Pravinji told that he started following Dr. Vishwarup Roy Chaudhary. Now I am also following DIP diet, but in the DIP diet I am taking, as prescribed by Dr. Vishwarup, I am taking fruits and then raw vegetables and then plate 2 diet.
Yeah.
And then the leafy. Now, but you told me that you are not taking any fruits.
Yeah.
Because of glucose, but Dr. Chaudhary says that fruits contains fructose.
Yeah. So, Anandji, first of all, I'll address the first part of your question, whether you should discontinue what treatment you're doing. By no means this session is to create doubt in the minds of people who are already undergoing a particular, line of treatment. So my recommendation is, now you shouldn't change what you're doing, but incorporate the things that you learned here into your day-to-day lifestyle, and that should help. Another thing is, coming back to the question of with regards to DIP diet, the plate 2, even I had started with DIP diet, but I realized it had grains in it. The plate 2 especially had certain dal and normal cooked food also in it. So what, as I mentioned, was my logic was that I needed to stop having cooked food, because that was the one, in the olden days, the only way to cook food was through water or to steam it. So I kind of went as native as possible. The more native you go, the more easier it is for your, see, right now your body is fighting with these cancerous elements. You need to give it all the strength it needs to fight it. Now, how can you give that? You cannot inject anything which gives the energy. All you can do is, you have only food, air, and water. So stop having everything that is going to make your body work harder. For example, if you have teas and coffees and cold drinks and all those things, please stop them right away, because they are not going to help you. They are going to increase the inflammation. Just have water, and that too only when you are thirsty. The second thing is, when it comes to food, give the body foods that it can easily digest. And that is, fruits is fine. As I mentioned, in my case, I became too paranoid about glucose. At the end of the day, it is called fructose because it is from fruits, but in the way it goes into the body, it is finally a form of glucose. Because cancer loves sugar in the form of glucose, I had stopped taking it. But again, everybody has a different take on it. I wouldn't say it is harmful or not, but not having fructose helped me. That is why I kind of share what I had. But I know Dr. Bishwarup Chaudhary's has been a very famous this thing. So if you're having fruit, that is not a problem. So don't be in doubt as to, as to the fruit part. But what I would recommend is, when it comes to any other things that you are having with regards to the plate too, try to cook it in, as Dada mentioned, in coconut oil if possible. The sabzis that you are cooking or the dal that you are cooking, and you should be fine.
Wonderful.
There was one more thing I did. I just remembered. This two things actually. Our body's acidity can be immediately brought down by a simple exercise. And one is, you take a jug of water, or maybe a glass of water. In that, put 8 kokums overnight, 8 pieces of kokum overnight, and in the morning, crush the kokum in the water, and then stain that water and just drink the water, the stained water. Do this for maximum of 5 days. Don't do it on a sustained basis. Just do it for maximum for 5 days, and you will notice your acidity levels in the body would have drastically dropped.
By the way, kokum means Garcinia indica.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Another way to do this is every day morning, overnight in a jug of, have a jug of water, cut cucumber, lemon, and ginger, and keep it overnight, and in the morning have that water, drink that water. That also reduces acidity and increases the pH level.
That is called the detox water.
Yes.
Which is like most of the times we do suggest.
Yes.
So everybody, I think it has been a fantastic session. Pravin, like all good things in life, this has to come to an end. I know people who have many, many more questions. We would love to answer everybody's questions. If you can connect with us, we run a really wonderful program called Sattv. It's for about 90 days. We do complete diet purification, complete body detoxification. Because of the body detoxification, our mind becomes very clear. That's what we have experienced. Even Pravin has undergone a lot of inner purification because of his diet purification. How much your weight reduced, by the way, Pravin? That was one question I wanted to ask you.
I lost 20 kgs, 40 pounds.
40 pounds, 44 pounds. My God. So this kind of transformation is possible. Please join us. Please let us know where you are, how we can help you. We have given all our numbers. We have also given links in the chat box. If you can connect with us, we would be delighted to hear from you. Okay. Thank you so much. Pravin, thank you everybody for attending. And we will see you again soon in the next couple of weeks.